Hey everyone, welcome back to HD Reddit Reads. Today's topic is, what's the creepiest thing that's ever happened to you or someone you know? Let's get into it. This happened about 3 years ago or so. I was sitting in the kitchen and it was around 10 p.m. or so. I heard a really loud thump in the basement. I live alone with 2 dogs, so any sound is somewhat frightening to me. So, as I'm walking down the stairs to the basement, I hear the thumping again, in an oddly rhythmic pattern. I creak open the door into the basement bedroom and I see a dog is just ramming his head and body into the wall over and over. I can't explain to you how shockingly unnatural looking it was. It looked like he was controlled or something. I called him over and he stopped and came upstairs with me. 3 hours later, I hear the thumping again. I get out of bed again, however, when I went down to check it, it was my other dog that was ramming his head into the wall. It was like he was possessed. Scared the cheese out of me. Since then, nothing like that has ever happened, but what an unexplainable event. I worked with a girl who casually told the story of someone almost kidnapping her little sister. One day, she walked outside to tell her 6-year-old sister to come inside, and her sister was climbing into the open door of a car at the end of the driveway. My coworker screamed and the car drove off without the sister. Back in the early 90s, my sister took my nephew to a playground to play. When we were leaving, she noticed a man approaching her. He was well dressed in a suit and seemed to be driving a beat-up pickup truck. He asked her if she could drive him to the gas station a few blocks up so he could call a tow truck, as his truck had broken down. She told him no, that would make her very uncomfortable, but she would gladly stop at the gas station and call the tow truck for him. He started to insist it was only a couple blocks and he was already very late for work. Now feeling very uncomfortable, she said no again. Then he got mad, really mad, and yelled at her. "I only want you to take me home." She noped right out of there, jumped in the car, backed up quickly, and rolled the window down just enough to say, "Don't worry, I'll call a police officer to help at the gas station," and sped off. She did not stop at the gas station, called the police, and returned to the park with the police officer. The guy and his truck were nowhere to be found. I was midway through a 12-hour road trip alone, driving all my college apartment stuff back to my parents' house. The car was totally overpacked with boxes, a bike, keyboard, and the like. I'm very low on gas, so I pull over to a gas station in the middle of nowhere town. Sun is dipping low and the gas station is empty, just off the side of the main road intersecting the highway. Few cars meander past the road, but it's a quiet town. As I'm pumping gas, a scraggly thin guy walks up and starts mumbling about asking for the time. I tell him the time and he makes small talk, but not a word this man said was intelligible. All the while he's circling the car and commenting on my stuff, but again, I can't really understand his words too clearly. I make an excuse to duck into the convenience store, which I needed to do anyways. My bike was rattling loose and I wanted a bungee cable to affix it more securely. As I go into the store and search for a cable, I notice a scraggly man also entered, but he's now talking with the clerk of the store. On a scale of 1 to meth, the scraggly man was an 8.5, but she's hardly even a 5 on that scale. Much more trustworthy, while something about the guy gave me the creeps. Anyways, I find my cable, and as I approach the register, she makes small talk about noting my car overpacked and asking if I was moving somewhere, all the like. She asks about the cable, and I explain it's to secure my bike more firmly. She then tells me I should drive my car behind the gas station and they'll help me tie it up tight. Speaking in the plural, implying what I kinda already deduced, she and the man are associates somehow. Again, my car is just outside the window of the shop, in clear view of the main road. She tells me I should drive it behind the building, where nobody could see it, for them to help me tie it up, as though that help couldn't be done in the normal refueling area. At this point, my GTFO meter is maxing out at 3.4 Rugen, so I thank her and tell her I'll be okay, and then I practically jog to my car and get in, locking the doors immediately. As I leave, I watch through the window as the woman and man are in a very animated conversation, gesticulating towards my fleeing vehicle. Could I have been paranoidly misreading these people because they kinda looked like meth heads? Sure, but making an offer that sketchy is not a very normal thing to do. When I was 12, my family and I went to Sam's Club. Being a little a-hole, I decided I didn't want to walk with my family, so I wandered around looking at clothes and books. An employee kept watching me, like, staring really bad. I figured he thought I was going to steal something, so I smiled at him so he knew I wasn't bad. He smiled back. He kept checking me out though, and asked me how old I was. We talked about my favorite books and video games. I remember being uncomfortable, but couldn't figure out why because he was super nice to me. I remember wondering if he was flirting with me, but reasoned that he couldn't be because I'm a boy. Really weird conclusion to come to, but I was 12. I genuinely thought he was just interested in my favorite video games. The conversation died down and I decided I need to piss, so I went into the bathroom. Less than 10 seconds later and the restroom door opens. The guy stands in front of my stall even though there was empty ones. I recognize the guy's shoes as the employee's. I stand there for a couple minutes, done pissing, but really confused and kinda scared. I thought he followed me because he thought I was stealing. Then the guy held a camera over the stall and took a picture of me, like really quick. 1 or 2 pictures of me just effing standing there looking up at the camera. My dick wasn't even out or anything. Just me in the bathroom. Someone else came in and he immediately went to the sink and started washing his hands like he just finished using the bathroom. Then he left. It was really creepy. I didn't tell my mom anything except that the Sam's Club guy thinks I'm stealing, and she laughed. I realized way later that he was just a pedophile. I'm a biologist that often has to do field work surveying unmaintained private properties in the middle of nowhere. Long story short, we find a body face up in a stream deep in a thickly wooded wetland. The body looks several months old at least. No clothes, no tools, no shelter. Nothing nearby to suggest who he is or how he got there. We couldn't even tell the race or gender from what we saw. We called the police and they immediately tell us it's probably the missing person who ditched his car nearby. They apparently searched for weeks with dogs, horses, and ATVs, but didn't find any sign of the guy. All they found was his family car loaded with cash and a handgun. They also tell us he seemed to be running from someone or something. Real or imagined, they weren't sure. Apparently the man didn't even close his car door, just ditched it at the rail crossing and took off running into the woods in a tremendous hurry. I find his clothes about 30 yards up the stream bank from where the body was found. His pants were nearly folded and placed on top of his new brown loafers. Underpants and socks on top of those. He placed his glasses atop his socks, very orderly in a nice pile. His shirt and undershirt were hanging from a tree branch right above those as if to dry. I mean, the whole thing creeps me out, even a year on, but what unsettles me is the fact that he ran from his family, drove several hours from his home, ditched his car, and fought a mile through briars and thick woods, only to stop and carefully fold and hang his clothes before meeting his end. I look him up every now and then, and I still can't find any more info about what happened or why. I was at my uncle's house in some countryside with my sister, and we were playing hide and seek. My uncle went out to buy some food for us. I was hiding downstairs in a weird closet/attic thing I found. I heard a little banging noise and got a little spooked. I then chalked it up to a little rat or something, and I continued to hide. I then heard a snore and a groan. I immediately got out and ran to my sister. We both sat at the door together crying until my uncle got home. My uncle just laughed it off and we were relieved. A decade later, an old man's dead body was found when my uncle tried to sell the house. It revealed he was squatting there for almost a decade, and he had written in a notebook how he was going to kill my uncle and keep the home for himself. And I think that would have happened if he didn't die. My cousin was a teenager, maybe 18 or 19. She and her friends went out to party a lot. In my country, you can legally start drinking with 16/18, so most teenagers started going to clubs at 16. Back then, hitchhiking was still pretty common, and most teenagers did it to get home or to get to the city, since only very few had cars of their own. So my cousin and her friend want to go home after a night out and get picked up by a middle-aged guy. He's nice enough and makes small talk while they drive. Suddenly, he takes a turn onto a remote road leading into the woods. He locks the car from the inside and his friendly facade falls. Instead, he's suddenly tense, quiet, and determined. My cousin's friend started crying quietly, but my cousin stays calm and starts talking to the man. She tells him about her family, her mom, her dad, her brother, and sister, and asks if he also has a family. When he tells her that he has a wife and 2 children, she asks for their names and how old they are, which school they go to, what their hobbies are, all while he drives them deeper into the woods. It must have triggered something, because after talking with them for a couple of minutes, he stops the car and breaks down. He starts crying, telling them that things that aren't going well at home, and that his marriage is pretty bad and he fears he'll lose his kids. My cousin confronts him during his breakdown and lets him spill his heart out. Eventually, he starts the car again, turns around, and drives them home, saying he's sorry. They get out once they reach the street my cousin lived on, and when he drives off, my cousin sees him put a knife on the passenger seat that he had kept hidden next to him. They never hitchhiked again. TLDR, my cousin and her friend almost got raped or worse while hitchhiking. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. It'll be greatly appreciated. And if you want to visit the original thread, I'll link it in the description. But yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one.